Hi, guys. It's all about movement. I'm here with Scott, and we're going to talk about stress and organization. Hi, Scott.
Hey Michelle, how you doing?
Good. How are
How was
you?
Florida?
It was amazing. It was really amazing. I actually saw quite a few kiddos that had trachs, and working with that and watching them starting to talk and do more things and being able to move a certain way, and more so too, the respiratory changes, becoming more functional. Most people think that respiratory is really based, the only way you can improve it is medication based. They don't look at movement based for that. As you know, with your daughter. And
Yeah.
not that she has a trach, but then again, when she was younger, the respiratory stresses that she had. And so, I know I've been doing this for a long time, and so have you, but we have the coolest job. We really do. And I got to see a Tampa Bay 49ers game. I got to do a round of golf in Disney because I just started golfing. I got to fish. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Busy day in Liverpool today, so we've so everyone's wrapping up warm, ready for potential snow to hit us today. So not looking
Ooh.
forward to that. And then up in Scotland at the weekend, working with a few families up there, so be pretty cool. As you know well, we were there 12 months. The idea for this All About Movement podcast was born.
I know. And
Happy birthday to the podcast, right?
yeah, no, it is. We've been getting it. We're getting more of a routine going. Um, I would really like to discuss stress and organization. I'm a big gym rat. I'm very active, and you're active. We've got our munchkins, and I don't think people look at the stresses of physical movement, whether we create it by weightlifting, let's say, or playing a sport, or the stresses that we're not organized to handle, which again is physical movement, and how it comes across, in our emotional, social, emotional needs, as well as having special considerations. And I'd like to really start changing the way people think about strength itself being the organization versus how the stress comes in and how you're organized to deal with that as a movement base, and how to make changes on the human body.
I think that's a big problem though that we have as a culture is constantly an emphasis on strength. Now, whether we're talking about elite athletes, the focus on strength all the time about children with additional needs, the amount of parents that I hear is talking about strength and we just need a little bit more strength, or you'll be able to lift your head up with a little bit more strength. And I think it's a problem that we have versus movement. And actually, strength can limit movement. And everyone talks about, if you increase the strength, then you're going to reduce injury risk as an athlete. Not necessarily. Too much strength actually injury risk because it inhibits your movement and restricts it.
Well, the what the problem is with strength is, to me too, it doesn't allow you those moments to evaluate the movement coming in and the output you need to get it back out. When you're going at it with full strength, which is, again, this is where golf is. If you're going to muscle through it and really, they'll immediately say you're hacking the ball, you're doing all this, you're not allowing that gravity to come through. So when you're full on strength, again, whether you're learning something new and you're trying to power through it versus allowing the sensations of the movements to start going into your body, that you can then now organize how you're going to return that strength or that ability, is really a huge missing link. I don't care if it's baby's first breath, or again, you're not strong enough not to fall. So these athletes are getting so injured lately because they're trying to get strong enough not to fall. It's okay that you fall. It's how you do it that you can get back up again. But the injuries this year on pro football are through the moon. As
I mean, same with baseball. There's they reckon there's an endemic with pitchers in baseball, greater injuries. I know we've talked about potentially doing a podcast on that hopefully soon. And the same over here, women's football, the amount of ACL injuries, and it's becoming more in. And I'm talking soccer when I talk about football there. ACL injuries across male and females, but particularly in women's soccer, it's unbelievable. And we looked at so many players missing from the Women's World Cup last year due to ACL injuries. And for me, putting too much of an emphasis on strength, too much an emphasis on linear movements, and not enough emphasis on movement and rotation, and looking at what is actually causing that problem that down. And a lot of it, for me, comes down to an emphasis on strength and like I said, limits movement.
Right. So you have to take stress. So let's say I'm just something as simple as lifting weights, right? You have to look at the weights are a stress, right? And and you could say, okay, it's 85 pounds or 40 kilos, whichever. But the stress is coming into the system, and now it's how I'm organized. Can I return and put that stress back, which goes into Newton's law of every action, there's an equal opposite reaction, right? But if I'm not at that moment organized to deal with said stress, right, then my system becomes impaired. It doesn't matter at the level. It could be picking up, that's where I go to suddenly pick up something where I go to the gym all the time and I all I did was move that coffee table. My back just went. And I'm like, yep, because it at some point the way that you're organizing your stresses, which to you is moving a coffee table or something just as simple as making the bed, is going to take you out because you weren't organized. Your body is losing its organization skills to deal with something that, and then you hear, oh, I'm old, or I'm, or these players, right? If you look at the retirement age of old footballers, old baseballers, you know what I mean? When did these guys go out? Babe Ruth, he basically passed away at the plate. When did he pass? In his 40s, young 40s? But they played old and
Mhm.
bellies and out of shape and so forth. And they smoke and whatever. And now,
NBA is getting younger as well.
but you're
Yeah.
seeing all of the pro sports. These so who just retired today? He's 27 years old. Now it might be for personal reasons and so forth, but again, injuries. What about the boy who just retired college football because he's like one concussion too many? We're blaming the injuries, but the stresses that we're seeing and ending careers, I mean, that used to just really go on.
I did a video on the academy last month as well, looking at that and asking a question: Are we doing enough to protect young male footballers? It's almost like we're yeah, within the professional era, we're getting and pushing the boundaries all the time, but at what cost? The George Baldock is a English professional footballer who passed away last month. Is the second player that I in the last few years who've passed away within the last 6 months, which I find really scary. And it's almost like we're putting too much of a stress on these systems, and we're not doing to protect the players. And again, the emphasis on is constantly get bigger, get stronger, work harder. And is that the right approach?
And don't forget more money. I mean, no offense, if you're playing and you're like, hey, you only paid me $50, whether I catch the ball or not, but when you're paying me 500 million to catch that ball, what I have to do to my body for that money is going into the insanity range. Like, is it worth the money of what it's going to do to you? I was saying the other day to somebody, I'm really concerned about Dwayne Johnson because I think his steroid use is I don't think he's going to end well. I don't think he's going to be around here much longer. His system is starting to really suffer. I know he's a good-looking man. He looks like the nicest guy, but and someone goes, "Yeah, but he's worth like 540 million." I'm like, "You're not worth much when you're dead." So,
Mhm.
like at what point? But
Exactly. Same
that's
same
a
as
big stress
Baldock. Yeah,
factor.
scary. And it's not just the cost of life, the early retirement. It's that limited performance as well. I know you talk about Tiger Woods, and I think that's a great example of somebody who moved effortlessly the world of golf for the best part of a decade, and then got bigger and bigger and bigger and had more and more of an emphasis on strength. And what happened to his overall performance?
No, I just looked at him the other day and he's such a sweetheart. He was teaching someone, and you can tell the way someone teaches that they're not doing it as like, showed up to do a promo, like, hi, you just do this. He was really, because you can tell by the peripheral vision, they're looking at you, they're responding to you, they're engaging with you, right? And not everyone's a great teacher. Some people are great players, but they're not great teachers. But still, you can see the sincerity there, not just because he's Tiger, but the way that his back is built up and doing things. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what are they doing to this poor guy?
And wasn't it an advert that you said that you saw where he's an injury waiting to happen, and ever since his career's gone downhill since.
I wish I could find it. I was doing a big training and it was it's I can tell you what the whole commercial was, but he came out of the shower and he only had a towel wrapped around his lower torso. Now you didn't see his front of his chest, it was his back. And then it was his twin, so it was a twin thing. And back in the day, like because this commercial aired between 2007, 2008, if anybody can find it. But he was wearing his Izod, his typical, baseball hat. And I know at that point he was Nike, American Express, and I want to say ING. I've looked occasionally on YouTube to see if I can find it if someone has posted it up. But he's back to back, you're seeing it, and he's talking to himself. So first of all, the way that he has to turn to talk to himself, I'm like, what? And the fact that his back had no movement in it, and I was just like, doesn't this guy golf? Like, because this is way before I knew anything about. So I came in and curious. I said, what's up with Tiger Woods? Why is he doing so bad? Because back then, again, we didn't have social media. Now, if someone eats a bad meal and has food poisoning, it's on some kind of social media site. And so, and they're like, well, he's the greatest golfer of all times. He's a green jacket. And I said, I don't care what he is. I said, but he needs us because he's going. And I think it was about 3 months later where he blew his knees out, because again, lack of rotation in the back, which is before I knew all my rotation stuff, but I could see the movement was bad. And where's the weakest link? He took out his knees. And that's what's happening. That's what you're seeing with these footballers. They're superseding the way the back muscles and the abdomen muscles are supposed to be. Your stomach muscles are not supposed to be more so than your spine muscles. It's not the way the human body was built. And so that is a big organizational muscular stress on the body. The same thing with the upper torso is not to be greater than the lower torso. A lot of weightlifters go for that real small abdomen to get that V, so their lats really show and play, especially when they're showing off the muscles, but they're really taking away from the structure. If I were to build let's say a model out of spaghetti, because in my architecture days it was, how could you build a bridge out of spaghetti and how much weight could it handle? And here it's just spaghetti, but if it's structured right, it could hold. I've seen it recently. Someone did like a case of water on spaghetti, and it held because the way that someone had put this together. But the human body is not made for.
Newton's mathematical bridge as well, right?
Yeah. So, and there's an issue. So, yeah, Tiger to this day, but I saw him the other day. His back muscles are still like, you don't need that for golf. You can't take a weightlifter's body and put it on a golfer. You can't take a golfer's body and put it on a football player. I understand that. But we're just these poor people, they've got money, but they've got pain, they've got no quality of life. And it's a shame because they can have both, really.
And I don't know if we can share the clip now, or whether we should just put the clip to YouTube in the show notes. But it's the link to watch
Can share it up. We can go over that way. Just we share it up. We
in
do.
Pumping Iron. Let me get it up. Watch the movement through here. So this is going back to the 70s, but you look at all these weightlifters
There we go. You hit that, so it's all.
and movements. they're all linear movements. They have to be very deliberate with where they're stepping. There's not a great deal of rotation. And if you look at a lot
Right
of
there.
the
See, that's
move,
the same thing I saw a tiger. See how Arnold's head is here, but he's not turning with the torso.
yeah, there's a lot of rocking. I see a lot of rocking in the movements as well. Like these guys can lift weights more of us could even dream. The epitome of strength, but the movement is restricted. And if these went out to try and play a game of sport, what basketball, American football, golf, soccer, they would be severely limited and would actually be an injury risk to themselves because they wouldn't be able to counter, they won't be able to move. Look at all linear movements. Now, if you get on resistance machines like this, you're actually restricting the movement that the body can go through as well. Yes, as a newbie at the gym, maybe you think, oh, yeah, there's less injury risk because I'm not going to deviate in my movement. But you're also not allowing your body to know how to move and how to counter, and you're actually increasing an injury risk.
Well, when you're dealing with anything that has a stress. Now again, these have a weightlifting thing. Where Arnold surpassed these people, he could go past pain like most people couldn't. So his organization to stress was pain. So he was like, if do it until it hurts. He didn't count to 10, like many people do at the gym. He did it till it hurts. And you can hear that in his book, a really good book on Audible. You can listen to him talk about it, but and it was Be Useful is the book. But he his stress load, and again, people go, yeah, you bench 600. So that's a stress, 600 pounds, let's say. It might be less than that, it's fine. But so he's got a stress, but what you're not looking at is that for, let's say, for me to go look at, I'm not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, nor do I care to be, but the way that I manage the stress of weightlifting, let's say, is completely different because I use rotation. So again, where you seeing the cable pulls, I start, it's like I'm baling hay. You'll see me, and I also go much further. So I do a full body off to the side. So I'm still lifting and managing weight, but I'm doing it with momentum, balance, and stamina. Stamina is ease of movement versus power. And so we don't look at that. But also, too, when we have a child that has needs and so forth, or even let's say you go for physio, they don't evaluate that you can go on a bicycle and then they increase it with 30 pounds of pressure. Then you go home, you hurt, you've been scared, you weren't easy with it because you couldn't handle the stress of the whole environment, which included what you had to do. Then you drop out. Oh, you're just being lazy. And I see it too, like with new gym memberships, the way they bring people into the gym, like guys, they're not Navy SEALs. They might just need to navigate, organize just the stress of, oh, do I have the right outfit on? Whatever is going through their minds, you see people walking around like this, and you're like, hi. And again, there's many different stresses that we go through. A lot of them are social emotional, and these social emotional stresses for people not managing stresses in their daily life, like weightlifting or gym membership's not for weight loss, it's for stress management and organization. And I just don't think we realize it. And so we ask people to suddenly have a stress. We don't look at the way that they're receiving the stress or organizing the stress. That person fails, and then we just have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the and where potentially we could help people and you said earlier on about how great this job is. It's because you get that opportunity to help systems organize and to connect. Had a conversation with a dad at the weekend, I think fits in with this as well in terms of he was saying that his daughter learned to walk at 8 years of age. She started taking steps, right, which is told that she never would. So that is absolutely fantastic. But what a lot of physios then started to do, so when she got to the age of 10 or 11, they then started to try and progress her the same way that they look at a neurotypical adult rehabbing from an injury. He said like getting to stand on balance balls and balance beams, and he was saying like it was really difficult watching because he said that he felt like he was watching her organize or to stand up on a roller coaster, and she never had that ability to go beyond, and it was almost like they hit a wall. But the important part for me is we need to connect those dots with too far there. And like we've got to take those steps and to organize that system. We're now looking at breaking down the movements and looking at weight transfer and looking at ability to rotate and they're seeing improvements with her walking and with her stamina. And mum said that she went playing bowling recently and it was the best that she'd ever been. And you're seeing that because we're connecting those big leaps and those big jumps. And I think even though we're talking less about strength in that respect, but just because you can doesn't mean suddenly you can stand up on a balance beam or a balance ball and be expected just to maintain that. You've got to be able to connect and have your system.
Yeah. By the way, guys, I apologize. Scott's in from the UK. If you can't figure that out by his accent, so the internet's a little sketchy with his voice coming through, but you get his point. Because it's just gapping a little bit, Scott, but it's not gapping. What people don't understand, first of all, the Earth is spinning at the equator at 1,037 miles an hour. So I'm in Arizona, so I'm going about 900 miles an hour. When I jump up, this wall doesn't hit me in the head. If you can't handle balance off the planet Earth and the way it's spinning, you're not going to get it on a balance beam. We balance off of rotation, and that's the way the human body works. And things come at us, and we need to handle all those stresses of things coming at us from all directions based off of planet Earth. Once we can go organize with movement above us, from the side of us, from this, then we have good balance. We then can go into a place where we can perch or have isolated or linear balance. First of all, those are adult based. You're not going to see a 2-year-old trying to do it. They will try and climb on a curb and come, but they're going to fall right back off. There's no one can do. Now, you will see from gymnastics trainings and so forth like that, you'll see that, oh yeah, my kid was 8 and could do that. Those are very exceptional people, and also too, they're being patterned all the time. You'll see where these people they don't have a long shelf life because of the stresses to their body that we've deemed should be done and can't be done. But also too, to expect a child again that doesn't have the visual capabilities or the physical capabilities again of just standing, transitioning, and walking, that we think it's okay, and it's not the parents' fault, but as professionals, to put kids on physio balls and balance balls. They're not circus bears from Russia. And this is where I started going against my son's programs until I got involved and started taking over. Because my whole thing is too, it's not a functional movement. I do not go on a physio ball on a daily basis to prove I have balance. And I don't understand this concept of again, there's circus tricks, there's stuff you can go to Cirque du Soleil. I understand that people can do it, but that doesn't mean all of us are supposed to.
And particularly when you're looking at children with additional needs, the system has got to be ready for it. And I see that quite a lot of videos on Instagram or Facebook, and they're popping up, and it's stuff that one isn't repeatable at home, two isn't functional, and three, is a system ready for this? Is there going to be any transferability? And that's where you've got to work on organizing the system.
Yeah, but it's the same thing for a pro footballer. They've had like ACL injury, and look at what's the first thing they're doing when they get out. They're not learning to deal with just standing in the basics of gravity. They're asking them to do tricks. And again, a trick is not a functional movement. It's not, and to go on a balance board and say, oh, I'm strengthening my knee. Yeah, but you're never going to play sports again. And that's what they don't understand. And so these people are getting out of rehab expecting the body they had before, and then they blame the surgery, they blame this, that, and the other, but they don't realize that again, the stress that they went through, and now the organization is completely off.
And what I think is really important there is how many of those players also then come back and then get injured again, get
Yeah.
recurring all the time. And there's players that I know particularly in soccer who are very talented, but just repeated injuries, repeated injuries. They never quite fully rehab. Consequently, they're always going to be a higher risk of injury moving forward, and that's almost just like it's a given, and they still get given big contracts. But you know, go back to our last. You haven't listened to the previous episode where we talked about deviation and compensation. That episode tells you that the exact reason why these players are constantly getting injured when it's not been rehabbed. The body I listened to a podcast the other day as well, talking about memory and how trauma is held in the body, and how PTSD is dealt with for so long. It's the same with injury. In the body, the body remembers it and just compensates and deviates unless it's properly rehabbed and the system is properly organized and ready to go out and perform in a functional manner again.
Yeah, but even PTSD, like if you don't have the stresses of movement, like I work out every day, not for weight loss, which you can tell, you know what I mean? But I work out because I'm working with the stresses that I need to organize for anti-aging, for mobility, for availability, for what I can do to maintain who I am. And because of that, because I have a good, like I was at the gym this morning, and so, but now I can handle the social emotional stresses because again, my brain is organized more for these things. If when you're dealing with any kind of stresses, the first thing people go after is the emotions. Well, how do you feel about that? Well, I have a problem with the way I feel about it. Hence, this is why I have post-traumatic stress. But we don't look at what that person is doing for their movements that's making their emotions that much harder, and the stresses, the lack of peripheral vision, the lack of crossing midline, the ability for rotation, getting in and out of the car. Like I couldn't go to dinner, last night. Why? I don't have depth perception. It's hard for me to get out of the restroom. They might not be ready to admit these things, but it causes a problem to become antisocial, and two, then pain or those kind of stresses of emotion become more predictable. Like I can't go this weekend because I won't be up to it, and you get the reclusiveness, and it's not that person's fault because they just don't move well in the situation.
And it's about learning to get into the system and allowing them to adapt to what they've gone through, and it's almost another way of healing. I mean, parents talking today, car crash, and almost like for so long, almost walked around with an arm up, so to almost protect the ribs that were broken, and without even realizing. And it's about allowing them to feel that they can move, needing to protect themselves at all costs. But the same with any form of injury, and I suppose that's an injury and PTSD. But whether it's not that it's trauma's held in the body until we work through it and we relieve it and we get rid of that waste product, and we make new connections with the brain to prepared to work on a functional level every day.
Right. Or like you talk about too, a lot of kids get injured, have broken bones. They don't get any kind of recovery. Oh, you're good. Go see ya. Put your arm down, range of motion. Okay, great. Whereas adults are much more likely to get some form of minor rehab. So there's that. And like I hate when people think that my hands are just free. Here, go work on that person. But I had a client there and he goes, well, just show my friend what you're doing because he doesn't get it. I don't know why I picked his knee and I lifted it up. I'm like, oh, when'd you break your foot? And he goes, when I was 14, why? I'm like, oh, nice, you're still in the cast. And he had this every time he lifted his foot up, it was just straight like this. So I knew, he didn't, I should lift up a foot and it's 90-degree like gravity. It's not off. And I just did a quickie, as I call it, and whatever. And I said, good, go stand up. And he was so cute. He was 68 years old. He laughed like the cowardly lion. Oh, he's like, I can walk. But again, I never saw him again. I didn't get a chance to reorganize his back and body to the new foot or new foot placement, however you want to look at it. But literally, like he'd been in cast, and the same thing with me when I got evaluated my first time, and it's like I had bars on my feet when I was a baby, and someone lifted my knee up and said, relax your foot. And I said, well, I am relaxed, but my foot didn't know to drip to the floor because I was in boots from 6 weeks on with bars, and that's why my legs are all crooked because of this AFO placement, which was bad on me, but it is what it is. Soft tissue becomes hard tissue. But so that's why I'm adamant that a child really gets evaluated for AFOs pre, hips and vision before they get the AFOs because it's just personal experience.
But two things there for me. Firstly, if you haven't listened to that episode on deviation and compensation, go back and listen to it. Walks you through that and explains why that is a big issue. And secondly, I have to say, like I've been with Michelle in our training, and when we've new practitioners looking to improve their touch, and the amount of times I've seen that, and it's been like, did have you ever done anything to your knee? And it's like, well, yeah, when I was 12 years old, I had a skiing accident, or when I was 10, I mean, it looks like Michelle's got some sort of like psychic powers, but it's incredible skill. I think that should we could take that on the road, and you could be able to do it's a
Movement
phenomenal
is a
skill to
language.
have.
It is a language. So to me, it's like I know how to speak Russian. I'm not gifted. I just know a language that most people can't speak. And so, like I said, I was at the party. I'm like, can I just go one party, social event where I don't feel I have to work on somebody? But I can't, like if it's an adult and you're like, yeah, I'm just old, I can't help you. I can't unless you're willing to come to me. I'm not coming into your bathroom and just say, here, let me work on you. But for baby, I just can't walk away, especially when it's like, well, she's fine. Oh, 7 weeks premature for 15 days NICU. I'm like, she's fine. She's ready for a CP diagnosis. And, to suddenly see her, transition and through her pelvis and she can get up in and out of standing and start to crawl within what, two 20-minute sessions at a party. You know what I mean? Like and they're like, this is miraculous. So everybody's watching me. It's miraculous. But again, I couldn't go to one of my adults and say, good, are you coming in now? You just saw what I did. Yeah, but I'm not a baby. People will find I wouldn't call them excuses because excuses is when you really know what's going on and you say, I don't want to. Just lack of knowledge of to come in and say, I just want a better life. What can you do for me? It's really going into the restaurant. Why don't you surprise me? I don't think most people could say that. What is good? What's in the chef in the mood to cook tonight? Just bring that to me. I don't have dietary restrictions. I don't think people are open to just possibilities like they should be.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm starting to already dread January because New Year's resolution. You get those people who haven't been jogging for 12 months.
Yeah.
Like because everywhere I look, I'm just like, oh my God, how are you running like that? Oh no, like what? You've got an injury coming. That's not going to end well, like, and you're just looking at like, how can people move around like this? And it ends up being like, what struggle in the park. They're going to struggle with the running. They're going to try it for a couple of weeks. They're going to get an injury again. And what are they going to think to do? Oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to build up the strength because that's almost what's ingrained in them. They're movements, and again, they're going to get ready to injure themselves again when they go back out running.
Or like I'm learning golf. And so people like, well, just watch Tiger Woods and you're gonna chit just like him. First of all, I'm female. I'm not a male. Second of all, I have a different visual perception, depth perception, because I'm shorter. Um, I'm not the same age. I have breast tissue, everything else. I've got to be the curviest person out there golfing. Again, so I have to manipulate, which is fine. It's my body. I have crooked legs. They don't have crooked legs. I can take the essence and again the rotation, and again I love the gravity, versus using your muscles. If you go to use your muscles, you're going to stand up more, just that little bit, but then you're going to whiffle and miss the ball, right? That's when you come too high off or you catch the top of the ball, and stuff. You can't get tight and then drop your clubs in. That's just not the way it hit. You really have to relax, let that, and then as you again start to organize that stress, because it's not a moving ball, right? You're hitting, you're swinging the club in the purpose of the ball's going to get in the way and go. And so you're going after that. So because I understand my body, because I understand movement, that I can take that and change the way that I learn and make it my own. It'll be my game. Now, some people might say, no, no, no. Tony Robbins does a great presence, and he's like, if you want to be like Janet Jackson, just act like her. It doesn't. No, it doesn't work that way. You can take her essence, but if that means you'd have to go through her years of abuse to become there, or that she was the only female within what, nine brothers, and she was the only. There's so many things that go into that, which is fine, and that's why she's unique, and we could admire someone like that. But at the same time, too, I'm unique for a reason, and so are you, and so is our kids, and so are the adults that we deal with. And it's again how they deal with the stress and how they organize it. That's where we come in and say, well, let's change the way you move here so the stress isn't as much, or let's change the stresses so you can organize movement here better. And I think that's important.
Yeah, massively. And I think those people who do go out jogging or movement or new activity for the New Year's resolution, because we're getting very close to it already. If you do have trouble, rather than just going to fix a problem at a gym with linear, why don't you have a look at getting in touch and looking to get a movement lesson to help organize that system? There's practitioners out there that people are available to help you. Get in touch with me or Michelle, and uh,
It's
uh,
free. Do the adult course on breathing. Open up your chest cavity. Expand do the spinal, do the head trauma course. We've all fallen and hit our heads. I don't care if you say there's trauma or not. There's so many available options. One of the things that I need to start doing, especially with the podcast, is like a one a week little do sessions with us. And maybe Scott can join in and he can pull off one, I can pull off one, but just to get us moving more efficiently. Let's start reducing some of our stresses so we're organized better so we can change the world.
I like it. What one final thing I think we should say, just in terms, and I think so I think we have to mention him at least once in every single podcast, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And when again, everything that we're talking about here, you look at the training videos that Mahomes things about rotation. There's very few linear movements, and if there are linear movements, it's certainly an aspect of weight transfer, and mostly we look at rotation and how often injured. I mean, I'd love to see a record, but does he ever miss a game?
Yes,
I
but
really
let's
don't.
look at his stresses. Look at how people they lost this weekend. Look at where people are going with that. They were undefeated going into this. They're now what, 9-1? Give the boy a break. Just say, under those predicaments, well done. We don't go there. We're going to take
They
this
lost.
and just rip
They
them.
lost to a really poor team. They lost to a quality quarterback. They lost to a well-organized, great team that's gone to the end of the playoffs the last few years. The beat by a very good side. It's not Mahomes, it's certainly not due to him.
Yeah, but again, those are the new types of stresses due to social media, due to whatever that he's going to be picked up, or people just don't like him because they just don't like him, or because it's Kansas, and or because it's like, these are all additional stresses that are coming into our lives. He'll never move well enough to make everybody happy, but that's okay as long as he's cool with that. I mean, and I'm sure he is. That's why he's all over the place, and that's why who he is. But he's a brilliant player. He just is. But if you look at his workout routine, it was just up on. I was at EOS this morning, and he does so much rotation in his workouts, and I think it's just natural for him. But it's so necessary for everybody. That's where maybe one case you could say, like, start considering how he's doing it, and you might want to modify your engagement to be more like that, to include it. But again, going back to movement lesson, get yourself evaluated first if you're ready for the task. Like someone was talking about knee replacement in golf, and like, I can fix that, and people go, what? I mean, I don't usually use the F word, the fixing, but again, what happens after all surgery? What do they tell you to do? Stop rotating. At what point are you healed? Do they tell you to turn on rotation? And they don't realize that they told you to stop the rotation. They don't realize that the rotation is the key for you to going on and going back to where you were. And because you've now really officially been told not to rotate, that's where, again, hip surgeries, knees, feet, whoop, you know, and you decline very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And when you spot on there with Mahomes, and I think that's why I thought it was good to talk about him as we the episode, because if there's anybody to emulate in sports at the minute, he's got to be up there in some of like the top five probably in the world, and he's someone who places an emphasis on rotation, that emphasis just on strength. And I think it's really interesting what you're saying about the stresses that are put on him on social media, and almost they put on pedestals to try and drag them down. And even I've been watching around to watching The Last Dance with the Chicago Bulls of the 90s, and the episode on that, looking at Michael Jordan and the stresses that are put on him, because they're trying to pick holes in it, celebrate somebody for so long, and then all of a sudden they want to pull them down, and you can see suddenly that the weight getting to people, and the change in the movement. And obviously then it's like with him, he almost seems like he used that and bottled it up 40 and 50 points in the playoffs, and take his game to a new level. But like, not everyone's going to have that competitive spirit, but you still saw that in his movement.
He
It's
was a
like, oh,
multiplayer.
the
He did
shoulders
everything.
drop. And
Michael golfed. He played baseball. You know what I mean? A lot of professional players they just do what they know how to do, and they don't want to have that play time for playing something else, and they just don't do it. The greatest players are not just doing what they know. And if you don't believe me on that one, watch the master class on Wayne Gretzky. And I mean, like, he only played hockey when it was hockey season, tennis and swimming and this, that, and the other. He did other things. And that's what makes you that again, that use of rotation, and you can just do so much more with your lives. But again,
you
the
just have
strength,
that diversification gives you a broader movement spectrum, doesn't it? I
yeah.
think
And
important,
that's what we
and
have to
also
bring
reduces the
into
stress. And
therapy. We can't keep doing the same old thing to kids and expecting the same result.
you know,
But anyway, I'm Michelle Turner, movement lesson. This is all about movement. I'm with Scott Davies.
well, see you soon. I suppose if you do have serious injuries, and you've got a problem that need out, there's no substitute for seeing a professional to get it X-rayed, or to this podcast isn't a substitute for that professional advice. But remember that we are here, that rehab, and to help with that system.
Everybody submits baby videos on my movement lesson for parents and practitioners. Put in a video. I'll review it. Scott will review it. We'll tell you what's going on, what you need to work on, what is optimal. We work with everybody. We're here from the beginning of movements. That's why infant development is so important to us, because Scott and I didn't have that as parents for our kids. So it's really near and dear, but I work on professional, Division 1, Division 2s, all sorts of acts of life. Up to 97 years old is my oldest clients. I'm working on a person now, I had 15 children. Everybody has a right to move better. So do you.
Remember, it's all about movement.
All about movement. Thanks, guys.